for the first 23 episodes of Chicken Philosophy, it was Edward reading Martin Luther's Black Books, and now it is again. So I consider that kind of what later, we put on a hat, we being me. And then after a few episodes of the hat, it became clear that that was Gwydion. And that's a whole other story. I'm not going to go into that. I've gone into it many times before. Gwydion is me with a hat on. Just to keep it simple. He would disagree. But then, when we introduced the Teilhard de Chardin series, Gwydion invited BT to come on to the series. Then we did Ashtavakra Gita. Was it in that order? Yeah, I think it was. We started reading Ashtavakra Gita, and some asshole came on and was like, "You are an arrogant fool." And so Gwydion, in an episode of Meccan Revelation, Part 10, he, responded to the heckler. And he's not very good at taking criticism. So he bailed. And then that was when Pymander came on. So then then the rotation officially began. And it's been rotating ever since. So it was me, Pymander, BT. Me, Pymander, BT. Me, Pymander, BT. Then eventually Pymander protested because it was taking away too much energy from Buddhist Books podcast. So he had a little chat with Gwydion in something. I don't know what it was. I think it was Martin Luther. Yeah, I think so. Or maybe it was Teilhard de Chardin. Doesn't matter. The point is, he talked Gwydion into coming back. And then Gwydion was back. So then ever since then, the rotation has been Edward, Gwydion, BT. Edward, Gwydion, BT. The books changed. There were 4 books, and then there were 5 books. And so with the beginning of the Secret of the Golden Flower series, there were 5 books and 3 people, meaning that the books would rotate, the people would rotate. And so thus began the rotation, the official 15, that begins, as it was in the beginning, with Edward reading Carl Jung, like today. Today is the beginning of the cycle. So just imagine God looking at his reflection. Like when you look down and see your own eye in the water. And Adam is the reflection. But who's the being? One of these days it'll sink in. If I just keep telling you you're God, one day you'll wake up in the morning and go, yeah, well, I'm God, so what am I going to do today? Simply to accept as information the idea. Coming!
Yes.
So this is Kapil.
Hi everybody.
So when you come to Goa, how can they contact you about getting a ride somewhere?
Yeah, they can contact you also. You can share my number. Otherwise, they can message me on Instagram.
What's your Instagram?
One Love Dude.
What? One Love Dude. ONELOVED.
Yeah, I'll share the link for you, so you can share anybody. And there is my website also in Google. North Goa Taxi Services 24/7, and it's located in
North Goa
Baga.
Taxi Services 24/7,
and it's located in Baga, Goa. Baga
Right.
Beach, Goa. You just put out North Goa Taxi Services, you will get my details.
So when you come to Goa, should they fly into Mopa or Dabalim?
Mopa, then anywhere I can pick.
Which
you
one's
from
closer to Little India Beach Cottages?
It's a Mopa.
So fly into Mopa, not Dabalim. Contact him beforehand about getting a room at Little India Beach Cottages.
Yeah, sure.
And you'll have a good time in Goa, guaranteed.
Surely, very good time.
Trinity and innumerable angels and saints. Yeah, can we get a tone scale? Thank you. Yes, it's Hubbard. Let's just set all that shit aside. He's horrible. So is Paul. Anyway, so when you're on your way down from 40 and you pass 30 on your way and you give a form to the experience you had in 40 and make it a memory, and then it can become a glass ceiling like this that can keep you from getting back to serenity of beingness. All right, let's take down the tone scale. I had a nap earlier, and then I dreamed that in the nap I had started a new segment, a new series within Chicken Philosophy, a new petal on the leaf, or a new petal on the flower, in which we were reading, like, the Odyssey, Le Morte d'Arthur, which I do have somewhere down here, and like some other old British, like, tale or myth or somewhere in between about a king, and I'm pretty sure it didn't really exist. And then when I woke up, I was like, oh, I should do that. And then after some time passed, I was like, no, I'm just not feeling it, you know? Like, the thing with Carl Jung and Ibn Arabi and Martin Luther and Teilhard de Chardin and Nag Hammadi, it is, I want to be interested in them, but I'm not. So now, you know, now in this form, it's become a thing. This is my way of approaching these books that for decades I've wanted to read, but not wanted to read enough to actually read them. Like, when I want to read something, I want to read Dune, right? Here's Dune, right under the 150-year-old Shakespeare's or more. Or the Foundation series, you know? I'm into the Yoga Sutras too, but as far as like deep diving into like what kind of nightmares Carl Jung was giving himself on the way to coming up with his philosophy that put a big imprint upon the Western understanding of, you know, I mean, he helped open up the portal toward an understanding of a lot of things. But like with everybody, I think, some more, some less than others, they have their own genetic signature, you know, kind of woven into the pattern of the understanding itself. Which again, like, I'm not thinking that the world should be devoid of that. I just think I want to be able to recognize that and to differentiate the information and the wisdom brought down or brought over from one geographic, historical, or time period to another, i.e. from 6th or 17th century China to 20th century Switzerland and Germany and England and America and all that. That makes sense. So he's opening a channel through which someone can perceive that, but he's also putting a lot of Carl Jung in it. You know what I mean? I mean, in the example of Secret of the Golden Flower, which is fine. And I mean, that's an interesting conclusion that I came around to. I think Joe Zabinski helped me come around to is, like, it's fine that Carl Jung has such a presence in the collective consciousness. I said consciousness. And unconscious at this point. At this point, he's in the thing that he coined. There's a Nebuchadnezzar. There's a, I don't know why I said Nebuchadnezzar. There's a Gilgamesh. There's you know, an Odin, and there's a Carl Jung in all of us that we can get to know. And so, that all being said, I'm not feeling the King Arthur. I don't even want to. I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe it's on that same level as Martin Luther, where it's so familiar. It's too familiar already, and I have zero interest in it. That's how we started with the Martin Luther series on here. But maybe there are assumptions about ways to approach life that I don't know that I have, and I don't know come from Le Morte d'Arthur. I don't know. I don't think so. And, you know, talking about goddesses and torches, you know who that reminds me of? Thaumashniet. I found these. I made these 24 years ago. To be clear, When BT says he made these, what he means is he took a photograph of these god forms as they had been painted on a wall by VH-SOR FDA, and then scanned those photographs and traced them around the edge and made these GIFs with transparent backgrounds. So I just didn't want anybody to think I was taking credit for the artwork, only the nerd stuff to put it on a website. Around August for the website for an event that was coming up in August. Anyway, let's bring them all up, shall we? Yay! Yay! We got a whole Hall of the Neophyte, the Hall of Two Truths, Z Formula. We got rockin'. Everybody get into your Z Formula places. Look, I can move them around. The term, quote, Gnosticism, end quote, has become a title used for a plethora.
Would you say I have a plethora of piñatas?
Oh, yes. You have a plethora.
Jefe, what is a plethora?
Why, guapo?
Well, you told me I have a plethora. And I just would like to know if you know what a plethora is. I would not like to think that a person would tell someone he has a plethora and find out that that person has no idea what it means to have a plethora.
Forgive me, guapo. I know that I, Jefe, do not have your superior intellect and education. But could it be that once again you are angry at something else and are looking to take it out on me?
He raises a good point. I think he was taking it out on them. Anyway, plethora. It's the three amigos. So there's people who are going to be locked in on either end of the spectrum. And by either end of the spectrum, I mean people who, take as dogma, take as their religion, if you will. And I mean, there's people who use a similar phraseology there's assholes that use a similar phraseology that I'm using right now. So I don't mean to be aligning myself with them or any of myselves. But the point, there's a specific point that I want to make. One is that it's a little tongue-in-cheek, the whole tarot, Carl Jung episodes. Two is that to a certain extent I agree with you. Talking to them, not you. Yeah, but you can. It's a normal episode. It's just for the moment in this context I'm talking to them. Never mind. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, and also I agree with you as far as when it comes to there's a certain Piscean primal, subconscious, semi-conscious, semi-unconscious, and conscious paranoia a person can get themselves into by way of tarot and astrology. And I agree that there should be a solid barrier there to prevent that from happening, a sort of backflow valve in the flow, where, I was long a by I mean BT in this context, was long a specialist in not utilizing tarot as a what's the future and how should I be afraid and what should I hope for or get the wrong idea about, like someone I don't want to ask them how they feel, so I'm going to do a tarot reading, like that, all that stuff. Wasn't into it, never was into it from the time I started learning tarot when I was 7 years old, and I'm 46. And as far as astrology goes, I agree with you. As far as, it's a fascinating study, but only if you're not locked in on one end or the other. Being locked in over here, in this context, let's say, means unable to see any of the contributions of the human race prior to 200 years ago, except for a selected few that helped to build the groupthink that you identify yourself as being a part of, i.e., ancient Greece or Rome or France or England, whatever it is, That's on this extreme. Like everything is just bullshit, hocus pocus, except for voting and going to, not to church, but going to the post office, going to work. There's some leftover Martin Luther in there that you don't know you're running. Former British colonial subjects out there and their descendants. Then on the other extreme, you have people who are unable to accept whatever it is. There's a variety of kinds of this one. It could be about tarot and astrology. It could be about Jesus. It could be about Muhammad. It could be about whatever, who are locked in and unable to accept or see any other point of view. That definitely they think these guys are just walking zombies of Satan or whatever, the more Abrahamic, not the tarot and astrology folks. They think of it as maybe a little sad that they aren't able to play in that world that they kind of live in. That's probably more like what the tarot and astrology folks would think of those people, But the thing is, I like to play in the middle. I like to go off the spectrum. I like to be tongue-in-cheek and kind of half take it seriously, but not to the degree where it's going to. And and I acknowledge that it's a fine line to walk, and I only walk it for fun. Like after having gone through years of various stages of relating with things like tarot and astrology, of a variety of different ways, a variety of different approaches, and a variety of different uses. But the thing that it all had in common was it was a use. It wasn't I'm going to let this overwhelm me, whether it be astrology, tarot, or the Bible. Deeper introspection. What? Feminine traits. Right. The affective character in a man has feminine traits. Right. Yeah, everyone's just like you. It's okay. You can try it if you want. I mean, be careful. Don't go as crazy as Carl went at different points. You can kind of take it with a grain of salt. But if you want to talk to a lady voice in your head, if you're a dude, go for it. All right. It helps to give it definition, abstract concept, personification, all that kind of stuff, right? Or you can pick one of the prepackaged ones, the gods from one of the pantheons or whatever, goddesses. Or whatever, Virgin Mary, if you're weird. The way I was taught, let's put up the name Gabriel. So the ye, it means possessive, singular, first person, possessive. So Gebur, as in Gabriel, which is on the right, but if you're looking at the diagram, it's on the left. Never mind. It's on your right, but when you look at a tree of life, it's like you're looking at a person facing you, not like you're looking in the mirror. If you were looking in a mirror, it would look like this. Then, see, the red one is on your right, but normally it's on someone else's right. Does that make sense? So, Gebura, Gavri, my Gebura, my strength, my power, is God. There's no is word. So El, some would say that's different from Yahuwah, but it's within its own context for the past couple thousand years or more. It's El and Yahuwah are the same. But like if you go back 3,000 years, maybe they were different. Okay. Anyway, enough about that. So yeah, my power is God, my strength is God is the name, and some would say the station. The destiny, the goal, the role, the job, the identity of the Archangel Gabriel. There you go. All right. That's what I'd say. I don't know what Ibn Arabi's saying, but we'll keep reading.
Do it there.
A Roman expression meaning I give so that you might give. Yeah. You gotta have the right attitude going into it. If you go into it saying, I'm willing to do this in order for this to happen, you're not really fully present for it. You gotta kind of be excited on both ends of the candle, of this. Right? The joy I have intentionally given to the other obliges the other to provide a gift in return. Your own overflowing joy never obliges the other. Down with my turn. High barriers, unless you're playfully kidding, high barriers would still need to be erected between men. Oh, Carl, so old-fashioned. Less to protect them against mutual burdens than against mutual virtues. Yeah. The Christian morality of our time goes on producing mutual enchantment. I haven't gotten to that part. But sin resides in that. Yeah, that's the whole thing. If I accept self-forgiving virtue, I make myself the selfish tyrant of the other, and I am thus also forced to surrender myself again in order to make another my master, which always leaves me with a bad impression. You mean like a bad taste in your mouth? I'm sorry, it's a theme. It'll only happen once, I swear, once per series that reaches episode 69. On one side of the spectrum, let's say this side, I don't know why, we'll put Jainism and Christianity, in that they're more about, like, they'll be more inclined to say all these many gods, Shiva, Zeus, whatever, they're not real. The only gods that are real and worth worshipping are human beings who are at once God and man, who are enlightened, who are fully omniscient, at one with their God self. That's what the Jainists and Christians would say. Later, the Christians kind of divided up, various times, really. Hence, there's thousands of different denominations today because of all the division. But early divisions included when Irenaeus said, a lot of stuff about Gnosticism, and then someone who looked up to Irenaeus named Athanasius in Egypt in the late 300s said all books are banned if they're about Jesus or God, and they're not. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, Corinthians, it's that list, the ones that ended up saved, that ended up in the New Testament. So there's a lot of people, and it's interesting because there's people who come from more of a Protestant background that'll say, indulgences are the devil, man-made, But those same people are convinced that not only is the Nicene Creed 100% accurate, which was the first church meeting of the church that everything it says is, you should question, but not the Nicene Creed, surely, and also not the selection of books that made it into the canonized Bible in the late 300s. Same church decided that. The same church that was doing the indulgences, and yet you stand by, like, there's people that are already like, oh, I'm ready for Satan to try to tempt me, that are watching this. I know, I see you out there in the audience, but they want to know about the enemy. They want to know what about the Nag Hammadi is, that they should be educated about how the enemy thinks, or some, I don't know, whatever it is. The ones I was winking at with my I'm brainwashing children with Pokemon and Gnosticism, jokingly. Anyway, no, but what was I talking about? I don't know, something. Spectrum, please. So Martin Luther is falsely putting forth the idea that that all Christendom for all 2,000 years or 1,500 some odd years of history was not worshiping Christ. They did not like Christ because, in addition to the canonized scriptures, they also had many and various traditions that had developed over time, which, admittedly, by today, certainly, and by 1530s, you look at this giant pile of things and you're like, whoa, what is this? Did Jesus say this? And they're like, well, no, Pope Pius said that, Pope George said that, Pope Henry said that, Pope John said that. And this was decided by a committee of all the archbishops of all the churches in the world. And then at this council we decided that, and at that council we decided that. Many of these things are core beliefs in your theology, Mr. Luther, that you stand by consciously and unconsciously, things from the 5th, 6th, 7th ecumenical councils and so on. So, so he's saying that if you, if you believe in praying to saints, then you don't worship Jesus. He's creating a false dichotomy, pushing it forth to get rid of the saints in his new Protestantism church, because he feels like it. He's an asshole. He doesn't want any other names on his church besides Jesus and Luther. I'm being a bit anti-Luther today, aren't I? I'm sorry. I'll go back to being pro-Luther. All right. Hail Lex Luthor. No, wrong Luther. You know, when you say, well, this is masculine and this is feminine, you have, you know, a certain type of person who's like, yeah, right, my wife is totally like that. And yes, masculine. All the good stuff is masculine, yes. And so I had students like that, you can imagine. But then I also had students that were like, what? This is totally stereotypical. This is like all the bullshit of history, of our ancestors that needs to be wiped out, that was wiped out, that has been being wiped out since the 70s, since the 60s, since the 20s, you know. Women can vote now, you know, like they can think too. And so for them, I was always saying, well, yes, the tree of life, the whole tree of life exists within every person. And Adam and Eve, let's bring up the Garden of Eden before the fall. So Eve is down here, below, inferior. She's referred to as the inferior mother, as opposed to the superior mother. Tree of life, please. So the Malkut is the inferior mother, right? And then there's the inferior father, the superior mother, and the superior father. You know, it's like, okay, lower and higher. Before Hitler, superior didn't have such a ring of genocide to it, right? And all of this was before Hitler. Helped to inform his worldview, in fact. No. But yeah, it did. It would be like what he has already brought into existence. Let's bring up the tone scale real quick. So, a statement like that could be made by a depressed person, like on the verge of or someone who's like bored, or, you know, like cheerful, or like in a state of pure serenity. Everything that God shall ever manifest from here to the end of infinity will be the same as it has always been. Or you could be like, everything that can ever be has already been. You know? You can do that with basically anything.